Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, Jorge and Anfisa. Let's watch.
Freedom. Finally, I'm gonna be able to get a driver license, to get a car, maybe travel. But George and I have been fighting a lot lately. Hopefully, we get along today so I can pass my interview. Hey.
What?
Where are you going?
I'm going to get my wallet.
Bring me my red bag with my makeup.
Okay, so she's going to her green card interview, which she is nervous about, naturally. And I'm guessing there's some tension between the two of them. And he's about to get out of the car, and she's like, where are you going? He snaps at her in an unfair way, seemingly. Says, I'm getting my wallet. And then she snaps back at him. She's been saying they've been fighting a lot lately, which, shouldn't surprise us, but it's an interesting little interaction here.
Can I have a key?
Yes, you can have a key.
Yikes. Yeah, just more of that sort of behavior. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. But to throw things at people, to key their car, to slap them across the head, to hit them, to call them names, it's just not okay. It's hard to watch.
George was late. We were late because of him. He's not very punctual. You always have to wait for him. I hope it's not going to be a big problem.
We're going into this interview to show that we're in love and happy, but starting it off with the fight is a bad example.
Is it though? I wonder, because I don't know, that the interview is trying to demonstrate that the relationship is real, right? Isn't that, I don't know, is that a myth? And if you're fighting a lot, then that might actually be even more convincing, right? Because it's like anyone can act like they're in love, potentially, but to have that amount of triggering to each other is really reserved for marriage, unfortunately, or long-term romantic relationships. In fact, I will say that sometimes, and I think I even thought about this idea before I became a therapist, that the worst part of ourselves are realized within a romantic relationship. And you don't know who you really are until you're in a challenging romantic relationship, meaning that you can think you're a good person and you can think you're differentiated. You can think that everything's fine emotionally for you. And then you're in a romantic relationship that triggers you.
Well, you're not telling me. Well, you're not asking me. Take the phone. What for yourself? You're not asking me.
So the drive there is pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah, hard to watch. More fighting. I wonder what his part in this is. I mean, her part's pretty obvious, but he snapped at her earlier. I wonder if he's also not trying. Now, she said that he's often late, so she's upset at him because of that, which, makes some sense. But, there's just so many other ways one could communicate about that. And you would think that he would be interested in this too, and would be on time, and would be, trying to get there early or on time. So I understand how she's feeling, but the behavior it's beyond some sort of threshold.
Arguing about traffic and if we're gonna be there on time.
It's very important. I'm gonna get my green card and I'm gonna leave you.
Yeah, she's resorting to that persona again, I think she says. And I know, I'm pretty sure, let's see. I'm 99.9% she's joking. She says, get me there so I can get my green card so I can leave you, haha. And she might actually be in that moment trying to bond with him in a little way. Like, if I make a joke, then maybe we can have a little laugh. I don't think he took it that way, but that's my guess. And or it's a passive aggression towards him, a passive hostile joke about, it's like, oh, I'm joking, but really I'm wanting to hurt your feelings.
We just came out of the USCIS and I got approved, and now I have my green card.
It was a pretty quick process. I mean, I think the line at the Apple Store takes longer.
All right, so they got their green card and they're good to go. So now she can work eventually, and she's looking forward to that.
Are they gonna film something with you after the meeting?
Tengo meeting with Lourdes.
What does this mean?
What do you mean? What does that mean?
What does this mean? Why didn't you tell me?
I knew you would get mad.
Yikes. So, I don't know what he's thinking. Is he trying to provoke her? I don't get it. So, he brought her here to have this meeting that he knew would bother her and lied to her and told her it was going to be something else. And at the last minute, she figures out, oh, it is that meeting. And, the decision making. Now, on one hand, you could say he's shady and there's something wrong with his personality along these lines. And I'm guessing a lot of people would say that. On another angle, or at least a factor, you would say, well, he knows the way she would react if she doesn't approve of something, and so he avoids. He will avoid telling someone. It's sort of like with Biniam and Ariella, when, this is obviously, I think, a more exaggerated version, but like when Biniam didn't tell Ariella about him sparring with women at the practice space, who knows, but it would be typical for someone in his role to know he probably should tell Ariella, but will avoid it because he doesn't want to have a fight. And he will often say things like that. Well, I didn't tell you because I knew it would be a fight. Well, you're just kicking the can down the road. You're just going to create a fight that's 10 times worse down the road. If you're going to have a fight, I guess, or at least a tension-filled conversation, have it now instead of 10 times worse down the road. So, but people will do that when they have partners that are very explosive. It's just like they put their head in the sand because they don't know what else to do. So maybe it's that, at least that maybe that's a factor. But anyway, I just don't understand what his thinking is, because it's not like she's going to be like, oh, okay, well, anyway. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Use the link below or use the promo code Kirk because that really helps us out. You know how I always say take care of yourself at the end of every episode? Well, part of taking care of yourself is taking care of your mind, taking care of your needs. To get our needs met, we must first know our needs, and to know our needs, we got to explore our needs. And even if you feel pretty good about that kind of thing, there's nothing like having someone who cares about you provide you with the concentrated time to really explore what you need and how you feel. Well, that's where therapy comes in, of course. And as you often hear me saying, BetterHelp can be a really convenient option for getting therapy. Also, online therapy has been empirically demonstrated to be just as effective as in-person therapy. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Kirk. That's betterhelp.com/Kirk. Take care of yourself and get the therapy that you deserve.
We're leaving. Let's go. You're not meeting nobody.
Yikes. So this is the conceptualization that I will say, which is that his behavior is not helpful, but hers is completely out of line. That's abusive, 100%. And I know people will look at this and say, well, she's smaller, she's a woman, he deserved it. No, he didn't. No one deserves to be hit like that. Nobody. Nobody. When you're hit, even if you're George and you're well, she's not very strong, it's the implication of it. It's the implication of, I have so much contempt and disdain for you that I will strike you for no reason. I just don't like what you're doing, and so I will strike you. So that says a lot of things. It says a lot of things about how much they love you or how much they care about your well-being. It also says something about what they might resort to. She's keyed his car when she was upset with him. She has erased his phone and his computer when she's upset with him over things that one might say are legit reasons to be upset, but not to go that far, right? So we're now, and I said this the first time she hit him, that one, it might not be the first time she's actually hit him, and two, that it usually gets worse. The frequency increases, the intensity increases, unless the perpetrator gets treatment. So it's pretty awful to watch, honestly. I always wonder, because I don't know, I feel like there's a vibe of anti-George attitudes or something, which is fine, but I worry that people will hear me say this. Maybe it's just because of the trial or something, but I worry that me identifying abuse, this happened similar with Ray and Zay on the ultimatum, if you watch that with me, Zay was absolutely abusive. And the conversations around that moment, if you watch that scene, was that Ray was a jerk face, that she's a jerk face. And I'm like, did you not watch the scene? Zay was imprisoning her she wanted to leave. He wouldn't let her leave because he was upset with her. She kept saying, leave me alone. She was trying to get away from him. He was putting hands on, and he pursued her, and she's like, leave me alone. Stop touching me. Let me go. Leave me alone. It was awful, right? And honestly, I think what this alerts me to is, one, that not every commenter is representing the other people. Because, people who comment, I think they represent something, but I don't know if they represent like everyone. And that was apparent to me during the trial reaction videos as well, that there were clearly a lot of people that were really enjoying what I was putting out there because the like ratio was really high. But the comments didn't really reflect that. Certainly there were neutral or nice comments, but there was a disproportionate amount of hateful comments and upset comments. But anyway, so I don't know. But I do think that at the very least, when I hear people talk about Ray and Zay and not quickly identify that as an abusive moment, not a high degree of abuse, but, abuse. And in this moment with Anfisa, that I haven't heard a lot of people saying, like, people say, oh, watch out for this couple, or, well, Anfisa, I understand her because she's just laying it out as she sees it. And I'm thinking, so this behavior is okay. And so what it alerts me to is, normally if I just had this to go off of, I might be like, well, maybe this is more like gender bias, that men can't be abused, which, could be a factor. But the Ray and Zay situation, the guy was the abusive one, and yet still people didn't really recognize it. So I think two things. One is that when you have a bias against someone, it's hard to see them as a victim. And I think people have a bias against George, maybe rightfully so. And I was surprised during the ultimatum how many people had a bias against Ray. And I'm like, why does everyone hate Ray so much? I don't get it. So when you have a bias against someone, it's hard to imagine that they're also a victim of abuse, which can be a big problem, particularly if you are someone, aside from reality TV, that triggers a lot of people around you. And then you're being abused and no one comes to your aid because they're like, well, you deserve it, that kind of thing. And so obviously that's not okay. But I think a more important factor in people not recognizing the situation as abusive, and again, I don't want to accuse you of being that way. Maybe a lot of people absolutely recognize and knew we were going to get here and like, well, wait until Kirk sees the abusive moments because it's going to be awful. But so I don't know. But I think it also points to just a general lack of awareness about abuse. That people have a vision in their head maybe about what abuse looks like, that it's classic, just full-on punching and that sort of thing. And when it doesn't look like that, which it often doesn't look like that, by the way, then it doesn't trigger people's recognition of what's happening. Now, do we feel bad for George? I don't know. But at the very least, if these scenes, the keying of the car, the hitting him more than once, the erasing his phone out of vindictiveness, the screaming and the control and the yelling is abusive, flat out, and not okay. And if anyone ever does this to you, identify it as such because you deserve better.
I don't feel bad after I hit him. George just lied to me again.
Yeah, she said something similar last time, that she doesn't regret hitting him. He deserves it. And yeah, you absolutely are valid in being upset about him lying to you. That was awful. That was absolutely awful. In my book, that does not justify hitting someone. One, two wrongs don't make a right, but particularly that wrong is not commensurate with his wrong. Hitting someone is not commensurate. Unless he hit her, I suppose, then I would say, okay, maybe, but still, it's not okay to hit someone. Not okay.
I am scared of her because she'll hit me and it hurts. I felt so embarrassed, but what could I do?
All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.